Good evening. Calling to order the regular meeting of the El Segundo City Council, Tuesday, July 19th. Please stand, and our City Clerk, Tracy Weaver, will give the invocation, and Mayor Pro Tem Boyles will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
As we assemble here this evening, we ask for God's aid and blessing to help us effectively perform our duties and faithfully accomplish our tasks. Graciously bestow upon us the gifts and abilities required for the work before us. Amen.
Please face the flag, place your hand over your chest, and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. City Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Persek?
Here.
Councilmember Brand?
Present.
Councilmember Dugan is absent this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Boyles?
Here.
And Mayor Fuentes.
Here. Now is the time for public communications related to city business only, 5 minutes per person, 30 minutes total.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Scott Houston, your local representative on the West Bay Municipal Water District Board of Directors. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to come down tonight and let you all and the public know about a free workshop we have on gray water that's coming up in the district. It'll be held on Saturday, July 30th at 9 a.m. at the City of Culver City City Hall. It happens to be a location that we secured. It's going to be a 3-hour workshop. It's free to residents of Division 4, which encompasses El Segundo. And we are asking folks to RSVP. I'll get to that in 1 second. But for those who don't know what gray water is, that's the water from your sinks, your bathtub, your showers, your washing machines that you can, if done properly, you can reuse that on your property to water outdoors. And so in the drought, which we're still in the drought, but last year, significantly, we had a lot of demand across the district for information about gray water. So we're very happy to have put together a program of workshops across our whole district, and we're working with a group called Gray Water Action to do this. But again, a lot of folks are very interested in gray water and how they could utilize that at their home. So I've provided a flyer to the city staff, and their city manager. I want to just read out some information so folks can RSVP. It's very important to RSVP because of the fact we have a limited amount of space. And I can just tell you, one of the other divisions had one of these workshops. We were totally at capacity. Over 50 people showed up just south of us in the other division next door. So you can find out more information at westbasin.org. And on our website, you'll have a flyer there as well, westbasin.org, or call the South Bay Environmental Services Center to get on our list. Phone number is 310-371-4633. 310-371-4633. And last but not least, I'm always so pleased to say, how much the public really has helped us and participated in the midst of our drought. The drought is not over. Yes, we had some good El Nino precipitation up north. Our reservoirs at this point are full up there. And yet, what comes after El Nino is La Nina. So we have to be prepared. While we didn't also get much rain down here, we have to be prepared for what this winter could bring and how we keep going forward conserving water. And of course, the district is very committed to all the different options that we have in order to maintain our water resiliency here across the South Bay. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, of course, you can check out our website, westbasin.org. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Houston.
Evening, Council. Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Ron Swanson, 629 California Street, and also at where my business is at 1111 East Grand. I thought it might have been on the agenda, but I know it's been discussed a little bit in the past, and that's the topic of oversized vehicle parking within the city. I look at it, there's 3 components to that. There's Imperial Avenue, which has become a mini RV resort with quite a few people actually living in their RVs, and I'm very sympathetic to that, but then again, this is a residential area. The other area is the parking of oversized RVs and trailers within the residential area. That is becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, there was one on Center Street where it actually, near the middle school, that the RV was on the east side of the street, and they actually took the power cord and ran it to the west side of the street, across the street. It just blew my mind. And then you actually see people with the pop-outs, popping them out into the street and then putting a cone down. Well, that won't help. So that's becoming more prevalent. But the real area that I'm concerned with is Smoky Hollow. We've got an economic development team that's working very hard to help, I don't want to say redevelop that or rebrand it. And there's a lot of money going in there, into that area. The problem is, if you don't fix the parking problem, shut the tap off. Don't bother pouring any more money in there. Franklin Avenue is becoming a parking lot for oversized vehicles, box trucks, even sometimes semis. And I'll probably tell you that probably 80% of those trucks in that area do not belong to El Segundo businesses. People have told me that, yeah, they park them there because it's safe. And I said, well, where do you live? He says, Long Beach. I've had somebody from Manhattan Beach say they park their motorhome there because they don't have room to put it in front of their house. So bring it to El Segundo instead. The oversized vehicles are a problem because it's sight. And more important, you're taking very limited parking away. And it just, I want to say it's just kind of ugly. There's actually, I don't want to say, I know it's an employee here in town that has a toy trailer. Day one, it sits at Franklin and Illinois facing eastbound, and I think it's a 3-day limit or whatever it is. Moves it at the limit to around and makes it and puts it in front of the city yard, and at that limit, puts it over in front of westbound Franklin. At that limit, moves it back around, and he continues that until he uses it again. Too many people in this town are using our public streets as their RP parking storage. Some people could have room for them on their property, but they don't want to be inconvenienced because they don't want it in, quote, their driveway. But if you're going to buy an RV or you're going to buy a trailer, it's really not fair to the public that you put it on a public street for more than the duration. Moving it every 2 or 3 days, skirting the rules and regulations, the laws, our traffic laws, is not an option. And it's really important that you guys look at that really close down in Smoky Hollow, because there's such an investment going in down there that it's just, like I said, shut the checkbook off. There's no reason to do it. The second thing that I'd like to talk about, well, on that subject, if you do put together, say you put together a subcommittee for the parking in this area, and we have to be cognizant of the fact that you have visitors, grandma and grandpa, aunt and uncle will come with their motorhome and they'll visit. We have to address that issue. I understand that. If you put together a subcommittee, I would be glad to volunteer my time to help serve on that and help formulate some rules and regulations, and including, like, I don't want to say a guest pass, but overnight, whatever we want to call it, so you can have your family come. So if that happens, I'd be glad to help. The second one is I've had to call City Hall the last couple of days over the slurry coating. And it's very frustrating. In my 40 years in business, I've never had an automated phone machine. It's after hours. It'll go to the night ring and you can dial an extension, but not during business hours. You call this City Hall at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you go into a voicemail and you have to go through a loop. We're supposed to be the most business-friendly city in the South Bay of our size, and you get a recording? That is like rule number 1 against marketing 101. The first voice you hear on the phone sets the tone of that conversation. And if somebody's frustrated and they come in and they get into that loop, it's going to make it a lot worse. I would encourage council to look at putting somebody there full time. Or if the call can forward when that person leaves that position, which I don't think they should because of the reception, I think you need to look at that. So if you want more comments, you guys know how to find me. Thanks for your time.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Fuentes and council members. My name is Jim Latta. Currently, I'm the president of the El Segundo Board Housing Board, and I wanted to speak briefly about the item F11 that talks about Park Vista. Although we haven't had a chance to formally talk about this item with our board, I'm here to tell you that I believe the board would be in favor, and frankly, I think they'd be thrilled. We've struggled the past couple of years looking at the expenses. The building is old, the process is very costly, and we have no means of increasing the income without significantly increasing the rents, and that's something we stayed away from. So we did do a reserve study recently, and it came back that we needed $1.3 million, and we're nowhere near that. We have about $500,000 and some significant expenses coming up. So if approved, the appropriation of the $882,000 plus, and then there is also about $221,000 in the Park Vista Reserve Fund, that would give us $1.1 million, which is close to the reserve. But the other issue that I think could make a big difference is if the loan was, proposed a solution of the loan, that would mean that the board would no longer have to pay the city $13,000 a month. So that $13,000 a month, in addition to that fund to boost the reserve, that would go a long way in securing the financial future of Park Vista. And it'd also go a long way in giving peace of mind to us board members and, more importantly, the residents of Park Vista. So I appreciate you taking that in consideration tonight, and I'll be around if you have any questions later.
Thank you.
Antonio Mendez, 408 Standard Street, Mayor, Council. Very recently, there was a strategic planning meeting. There might be different ways of describing that, but I thought one of the very interesting aspects of it was the vision that you people had about what El Segundo would be in, about 20 years or so. I think it would be very interesting if during the summary of your activities, you would summarize that vision, because I think it was very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. And so I think more of El Segundo should know about it. And I think that the reports that you give at the end of this session would be a very nice vehicle for doing that. Thank you.
Seeing no more public communications, we'll close it. Council comments? I wanted to address Mr. Swanson's concern. The council and the city is concerned about oversized vehicle parking, and there is a survey on the city website, which is elsegundo.org. I believe it's the first item when you go to that page, and you can take the survey and share your concerns with us.
Staff's going to report out those survey results at one of the August City Council meetings, and then ask Council for some direction based on those survey results on how you want to move forward with regulatory approaches, if any.
Thank you, City Manager. Any other comments? No. Procedural motions, consideration of a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Unfinished business, consideration and possible action to establish the El Segundo Technology Committee comprised of local business representatives, El Segundo residents, City Council and staff members to provide recommendations specific to the city's technology systems, fiscal impact 0. City Manager?
Mayor, members of council, this item was requested by Mayor Pro Tem Boyles and Councilmember Perstuck. Council directed staff to conduct some research, see how other cities deal with this organizations or citizens boards that are organized around this issue, and come back with some recommendations. So Captain Brian Ivansky will present briefly the findings of his research.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As City Manager stated, on the 21st of June, you directed us as staff to go out and research the development of a technology committee. After meeting with internal staff and Mayor Pro Tem Boyles and Councilmember Pertek, we bring forward this item mainly for your discussion to establish the development of the technology committee. The recommendations is to follow the city plan on putting together a committee and utilizing business and resident expertise, potentially 3 to 5 members and members from the council as well, with the assistance of myself and or the IS specialist or IS manager at the time. So with that, I can answer any questions or look for direction for further.
No, thank you for your effort and time into this. This is definitely something that the city needs to look at, and there's a lot of, I know there's a lot of initiatives that are being proposed and put in place, and a lot of the department heads are looking for advancements in their IT. So we appreciate this, and I look forward to developing this committee and moving the city forward as from an IT perspective.
Yeah, I would just add that this is an opportunity for people to get involved in the community, so we're looking for technology-minded individuals to step up and help us with this. So thank you for your leadership, you and Scott. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
So this will be like the other committees and commissions that we interview for. They'll fill out an application and come before the council, and then we'll identify the members, and they'll be held to the same Brown Act like everybody else. And
Fantastic. Thank you.
thank you. We need a motion to approve.
So I make a motion to create a technology committee.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Reports of committees, commissions, and boards. Consideration of possible action to announce the appointments to the Recreation Parks Commission, Planning Commission, Environmental Committee, Library Board of Trustees, Senior Citizen Housing Corporation Board, and Community Cable Advisory Committee. Fiscal impact, none. Well, this evening we had a long round of interviews. We aren't complete, but we are announcing the appointment of Alex Farfan to the Recreation and Parks Commission to a full term expiring June 30th, 2020. Kevin McGay to a partial, on the Environmental Committee, Kevin McGay to a partial term expiring June 30th, 2018, and Rachel McPherson to a full term expiring June 30th, 2020. We have an embarrassment of riches and committed and engaged residents in El Segundo. We're very grateful, and there will be many more opportunities to serve our city. Consent agenda, any polls?
I'd like to pull 4 and 5.
Any other polls, council?
No.
May I have a motion to approve item 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 4-0. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, item 4.
4 is just a correction. I incorrectly stated that 3 families were leaving town, and the Bustrom family was a little disappointed that I was asking them to leave, but it was really supposed to be the Puskas family. So I don't know, I got my wires crossed, but it's the Junuso, Puskas, and Katsky family that contributed so much and are leaving town. So that's the only correction I saw in the minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve as corrected.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 4-0. And item number 5, Mayor Pro Tem.
Just wanted the city manager to take a moment and clarify the specifics of this program. I know after meeting with you that this is, cost neutral to the city, but I was hoping you could provide a little bit more clarification.
Read it, please. The
Oh,
item.
I'm sorry, yeah. Consideration and possible action to approve an agreement on a sole source basis with Steve Koester, DBA Environmental Compliance Services, to provide temporary consultant services for the fire department and its certified unified program agency, Coupa program. Fiscal impact, $110,000.
Mayor, members of council, the Coupa program is a very long way of saying that that's our hazardous material storage and use enforcement arm of our fire department. Businesses that use hazardous materials, that store hazardous materials, are required to get an annual permit. We conduct inspections, we conduct enforcement actions as necessary if businesses are not complying, and we need some specialized skills for that particular position. The person that last had that sole responsibility for the City of El Segundo retired. And until we fill that position, which we intend to do this year, we need some specialized consultant assistance, which is where this contract comes in. The contract costs are reflected as being the full cost if we have this person on board for a full year, which is not our intent. So we expect to see some savings there. But to Mayor Pro Tem Boyle's point and question, the fees that we do pay this particular consultant will come from the permit fees that are generated through the Coupa program. That's the only thing that they can be used for. So the fees that we charge to businesses for their hazardous materials permits will go back towards paying for this particular consultant.
Thank you, City Manager. Motion to approve.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve item 5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 4-0. Thank you. New business, consideration and possible action regarding policy action for the Park Vista Senior Housing Facility located at 615 East Holly Avenue regarding the loan repayment agreement between the City of El Segundo and the El Segundo Senior Citizen Housing Corporation and funding of the Voters Trust Account. Fiscal impact, $882,544. City Manager?
Joseph Lilio, our Director of Finance, will provide a presentation on this.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. The item before you is regarding the Park Vista Senior Housing Facility and the loan repayment agreement between the city and the El Segundo Senior Citizen Housing Corporation. The history of this item dates back to 1981 when the city exceeded its appropriation limit, also known as a GAN limit, by about $2.3 million. In 82, voters approved to increase the appropriation limit and earmarked this $2.3 million towards the construction of a senior housing project. These funds are earmarked in the Voters Trust account. The city and the Senior Housing Corporation entered into 2 loan agreements to construct and operate and purchase property for the senior housing facility. The first loan was a loan from the general fund in the amount of $1,780,000. The second loan was from the Voters Trust account, this $2.3 million, plus interest of $882,544. After researching the voter-approved ordinance number 1056, the resolution number 3425, and the loan agreement number 1937, the city attorney and I met to discuss the above-mentioned documents and the recommended course of action to proceed with. The general fund loan of $1.8 million was paid in full in 2009. The loan from the Voters Trust Fund, the $2.3 million, is currently being repaid and has a remaining balance of about $2 million. The interest on this loan, the $882,000, was repaid in full to the general fund in 2014. Staff, along with the city attorney, are recommending returning the interest payment of $882,000 back to the Park Vista Fund. The city can also decide to forgive or dissolve the remaining loan balance of about $2 million and the associated repayment agreement number 1937, as well as refunding the $882,000 from the general fund back to the Park Vista Fund. The $882 would go towards reserves in Park Vista, which would be used towards much-needed capital improvements and maintenance. The facility does have a need of about $1.3 million in capital improvements and operating reserves as identified by a reserve study conducted by an independent third-party specialist. So this does conclude my report, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe?
I might have a question for the city attorney. Completely understand why we'd want to consider the $882,000, but is there any legal precedent or any other background in terms of forgiving the balance of $2 million, or just?
Well, you could leave the loan in place, but it would be somewhat circular in that as the money got collected, it would be then turned around and given to Park Vista.
Yeah, so the same reason returning the total accrued interest is the reason we'd be basically given the principal or eliminating the principal, more or less. It would just be a journal entry of some sort within finance, or?
As long as it's authorized by City Council, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion? No? So do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve, that we give back the $882,000 and that we forgive the $2 million loan
I'll
balance.
second that motion.
And when you say 882,000, you mean in $544?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
it's the whole enchilada.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Reports. City Manager.
Council, I'm actually going to start the report by having two of the department heads come up. I wanted Chief Tavera to come up and speak to there's a lot of concern right now with the tragic events of the last couple of weeks and the slaying of police officers throughout the country. And what are we doing to address that here in El Segundo? What are we doing to address safety concerns with our officers? And what are we doing to hopefully detect or prevent something like that from ever happening here? So Chief he has a few comments to make along those lines. And then I was going to have Stephanie Katsouleas come up and speak to the status of the Richmond Street project.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Again, I thank you again for allowing me to speak to you and to the El Segundo community regarding this very trying time for law enforcement throughout our nation. Over the past weeks, the following incidents highlight the dangers facing our law enforcement officers. On today's date, Kansas City Police Department, Kansas City, lost Captain Robert Mellon, a 26-year-plus veteran of his force, who was killed in a shootout responding to an armed disturbance call in an apartment complex. The captain, knowing how law enforcement configurations occur, probably was not a patrol officer. He was out assisting his men, went to a call, and was ambushed in his vehicle by criminals. On September 17, 2016, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Missouri, a man ambushed and killed 3 law enforcement officers and wounded 3 others. He was killed in that shootout. On January 8th in Georgia, a man called 911 to report a car break-in, then ambushed the officer responding. The officer so far survived his wounds. Also on July 8th in Missouri, an officer was shot in an ambush-style attack as he walked back to his patrol car during a routine traffic stop. We always tell our officers no such thing as routine. On July 7th, 2016 in Tennessee, a law enforcement reported a man who opened fire, killing 1 woman and injuring 3 others, including an officer. This person was motivated in part by the recent officer-involved shootings in Minnesota and Baton Rouge. Then on the 7th of July in Dallas, Texas, 5 officers were killed during an ambush and 6 others wounded by a lone gunman. Just this past week, our department has responded to the Inglewood and Hawthorne police departments to assist them in multiple calls of mutual aid on gang shooting. You probably read about in the paper that occurred. One was in a shopping complex over in Hawthorne recently. 2 well-known Crip gangs shot it out. So we have constant danger in our area of violence against police officers, but also violence against our citizens. During my 37-year-plus career, I have never seen or felt such anger directed towards law enforcement throughout our nation. History tells us the only comparable time to this was for those who were around then were the Vietnam War era in the late 60s and the 70s, when law enforcement officers were ambushed on a consistent basis by anti-government groups opposed to the war and opposed to government in general, being the fact that law enforcement officers are the thin blue line, are the first representation of government. They're often targets of violence for these groups. We will do everything possible to keep our officers safe. Our officers are being deployed in 2-person units, are being provided updated information regarding threats to their safety from our federal, state, and local partners, their intelligence sources, and provided equipment and tactics to address potential violence. It's also important to know that we also tell our officers the support that this community gives them, that we greatly appreciate our citizens and our business members and our visitors who stop and tell our officers how grateful they are for the job they're doing. As a department, we're in the process of upgrading our patrol rifle program, weapons, and obtaining active armor shooting kits. Those are for the individual cars that would provide our officers hard armor. The vest that I'm wearing tonight does a great job of taking care of pistol rounds, does a terrible job of stopping rifle rounds. Our officers are developing a community video on how to interact with police officers during an investigative stop. Get that information out there so people understand it. And in August the 6th and 27th, We are hosting 2 community events to discuss the challenges of policing today and other related topics. We have put the flyer on the front of our window out front. We have broadcasted it on our Nixle. The first one is going to be at St. Andrew's Russian Greek Catholic Church at 538 Concord. The second one on the 27th will be at St. John Church at 1611 East Sycamore. Please look at our flyers. Several law enforcement organizations are sending officers to the funeral of the 3 Baton Rouge area officers, deputies. We are also participating in that funeral. We ask our community to stay vigilant to suspicious activity. If you see something, say something. And if you have a chance, tell an officer, whether it's ours or somebody else's, that you appreciate the service they are doing. With that, I'll take any of your questions.
Sir, I know that the residents, the businesses, the council, myself are so grateful to our police department, truly the finest in the South Bay and all good people. And it's heartbreaking what has happened. This is terrorism. And as you said, see something, say something. With these horrible things that happened in Dallas, somebody must have known something. So if something around you doesn't seem right or somebody doesn't seem right, call the police department. You will not be judged by any call you make to provide information. It's critical to all of us and especially to our officers' safety.
One of the workshops, Chief, is active shooter as well, right? If
Yes.
I remember correctly?
We'll be doing that.
The second one. So it's just how the public can be prepared if that, God forbid, that was ever to happen.
We've recently done multiple active shooter programs in our city. We did one for City Hall last month for our employees, and we'll reiterate that again. And the active shooters or the shootings that we've had here involving our officers. Remember, while our city is a great community, we have many people that come into our community that cause problems for us. Sometimes our own citizens themselves, but they bring in all the violence from the outlying metropolitan area.
Just really quickly, too, want to congratulate you. I think it was your agency. I saw some news that someone was prostituting young ladies. I think it was the one that you guys arrested in El Segundo, if I'm not mistaken. Just got 40 years.
Oh, that was a
incarceration.
federal operation, sir, and I believe we assisted them. I'll give the feds the credit on that one.
Okay, good work. Anyway, thank you.
Sir.
Yeah, and thank you also for 4th of July. You had the command station set up on standard eucalyptus there. So I want to congratulate your team on maintaining that crowd because it was a lot of people in town from out of town here, and there was no problems. And I just want to congratulate your team and thank your team.
I think on that note, and I'll preface this in the future, what you saw in Nice, France, we're going to have to prepare for that at our locations, and that no longer requires soft barricades. It may require hard barricades to prevent that. You can see what a lone truck can do, and it provide massive damage, and we have to learn from what occurs in this global area. You never know whether it's a crazy person or a committed person to a cause that is anti-government, anti-social, whatever it is, that is a prime target. So I would just, these are something we will consider next time before we deploy on that 4th of July.
Thank you, sir. And
Thank you.
to the department.
Thank you.
So, Council, we have had some changes to the schedule on Richmond Street, the Richmond Street renovation project, and I just wanted Stephanie to explain that, the revised schedule.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. I am glad and relieved to say that our project seems to be back on track from what we envisioned it to be from the beginning. So I don't know if you've been to the 200 block, but it is moving at a rapid pace. And we had a meeting with the contractors last week to really reestablish what they bid and what our expectations were. That meeting was great. It's super positive for everybody. And the commitments that they made seem to be coming to fruition. So in terms of where we are moving forward, we're back on track with our month per block schedule, and we anticipate that it will continue until the project is done, and we have commitments from the company at the very highest levels. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know I can tell you from the business perspective, certainly in the 100 block, of course, they're very relieved that it's predominantly moved beyond them, but they're happy with the look, and the work has been really good quality. we've got trees coming in fairly soon. They were, if you're going to ask, they were tagged today, and tagging means that we physically go to the nursery where the plants are, and we select the very best plants that they have. They get coded to be delivered to El Segundo, and then it happens. So that's imminent. And then striping, the asphalt's down. It needs a cure time for the thermoplastic striping to actually bond to it. So that will occur at the beginning of next week. And as you can see, there's dotted lines kind of outlining where the ultimate striping will be. But by the end of next week, we're going to have a 100 block that looks in its infancy stage like what we envision it to be. Happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I have a comment. Just today, Stephanie, I just want to ask you again where people can find the information. I think it's on the front page of the website, but just today there was some online activity like in the last couple hours about the type of trees and people thinking they're actually like regular strawberry trees that I think we're going to bear fruit. And
Strawberries grow.
so can you just revisit the trees that you're
Yeah.
bringing in and why really quickly?
Absolutely.
And,
So we're bringing in, okay, to answer your first question, we are on the homepage and we are on Facebook. And then to the affected residents and businesses, we're handing out notices every week. They are actively, we reach out to them actively. And in addition, the contractor's foreman, I have to say, is outstanding. I mean, in terms of the relationship building that he's doing and the accommodations that he's making for businesses, we haven't had a single complaint about that, which is really good in a construction project. In terms of the trees themselves, there's two types. It's strawberry trees and king palms. The strawberry trees will grow 25 to 35 feet high, and they were selected based on a whole suite of factors that we wanted to achieve. We wanted trees that were green year-round. We wanted trees that had roots that would not ultimately disrupt the sidewalks. We wanted trees that would not drop things to the extent possible. Turns out if you want an evergreen, you're probably going to get some droppings, so we've selected a tree that minimizes that. So when we started looking at all the criteria that we wanted to achieve, this was the best fit, and it's on our approved palette. And there's actually some right out in front by the station that have been planted if people want to see what they look like.
And then just, Stephanie, I just wanted you to reiterate to the city how the schedule was so tight that when we had the delay, that really caused the slowdown. And so what concession you made to ensure that that sped up? What did you do to trigger the re-engagement of services?
So the original delay, to remind the public, came because the electrical subcontractor could not engage in the job. And so we had to go through a series of legal steps to replace that or to legally replace that subcontractor. When you lay conduit down, we call it a critical path issue, which means this step or other steps cannot happen until this one happens. It basically delays the project. So we were 3 to 4 weeks from the time we were first notified to the time we resolved that issue. So once, and that just impacted our schedule. Once that was resolved, the contractor was moving forward. There were no more critical path delays, but they weren't quite throwing the resources at it that we had anticipated to hit the schedule that they bid. And so we issued them basically a non-performance letter and said, why don't you come to the table and talk to us because our expectations aren't being met. And that was the meeting that we had that they responded to that resulted in what I think is a really positive outcome for everybody. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you for the information, and we're happy that we're getting back on schedule.
Yeah, we're really, based on what we've seen in the past week, we're really optimistic that we're back on track. And certainly it's a partnership between the city and the contractor. And to the extent that we keep that really healthy, we'll have a good project.
I think people will be happy when the trees are planted, too.
Right. And then I just have one other question about the slurring on the east side.
Huh?
I noticed that there's, because they've stripped all the paint on the surface that displayed the stop signs. There's a lot of people blowing through those stop signs. So is there any way we could put temporary stop signs at some of the the intersections that have a lot of volume, so that we can at least try to temper some of those?
Absolutely. I didn't know if you've followed slurry over the years. They are going at a rapid pace with this one. They barely started and they're almost done. It's the fastest pace I've seen in the 6 years I've been here. And it has to do with just the great weather and the resources that they've had. And they haven't had the kind of delays that sometimes come up with their accommodating businesses or special events. So it's been so far really good. But I assume the striping will happen fairly quickly after that, but we can certainly address those high-traffic intersections.
Right, and just put like a temporary stop sign there in the middle.
Stop
Yeah.
There are still stop signs. There's just not the line.
It's just that people don't see it anymore because the street the paint has been taken away.
Thank you.
Anything else? Great, thank you.
Mayor, quickly, I want to remind the public that the Thursday farmers markets are being moved from the 400 block to the 300 block, which is right in front of City Hall. And in the City Hall Plaza, we're doing that as a pilot project for this summer to see how it works, see if it works better in the 300 block than in the 400 block, and also to coordinate better with the Arts Walk. We had some concerns raised from businesses that were participating in the Arts Walk that having the farmers market directly in front of them was hampering their participation. And then finally, we have a concern from the county health department about having public restrooms in close proximity. So by moving it in front of City Hall, we do have public restrooms that are available that can be used. And we're looking for the business and community feedback over the next month or so about how they like it in the 300 block over the 400 block. And then finally, and I know the council's going to talk about this, I'll just quickly say thank you to all the city employees, police, fire, public works, and recreation and park that worked on the 4th of July, that spent time away from their families to make sure that we were all safe and had a good time.
City Attorney?
Yes, just briefly, and a couple of these things you've already heard about this evening, but my office spent some significant effort with the public works staff dealing with the contractor on Richmond Street, and glad to see that being moved along at this point. The Park Vista issue did take a number of months of working with the city manager and with finance director, and the finance director took 33 years or 30 years of history and did a great job of boiling that down in a couple-page staff report to where it was understandable. I really appreciate all the assistance on that. We are tracking legislation in Sacramento. Sacramento legislators are busy attempting to force affordable housing projects on cities without cities being able to have any oversight or approval process for them, and relatively large projects, and this is going back and forth. So we're keeping an eye on that. The League of California Cities is involved in that also. I'm afraid it might be a losing battle because cities don't vote and we don't lobby very well. Our cities don't lobby very well. And that's not a slam on cities, but cities aren't able to make campaign contributions and do other things. And so oftentimes legislation doesn't go in the city's direction, but there's a lot of effort being made to try to keep this bill from making it through to the governor. Additionally, we're working on some various development projects with staff. The Mattel project expansion's underway. We've been assisting on some of the initial CEQA review, and the Cozy Mel reuse project just went through the Planning Commission and will be coming to the council, and we were assisting staff with that. And that's about it.
Thank you. Could you give the housing bill number to the city manager, and we could put that on the next agenda and vote on it, and we could send a message to our 2 state representatives? How do you feel about that?
Sure.
Thank you. City Clerk?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Don't see our city treasurer this evening. City council members, Councilmember Brand.
Thank you. Yesterday, I participated in my first Centennial Committee meeting. Much going on with that group, planning for 2017, our 100th birthday celebration. Glad to be a part of that. On Saturday, I went to my friend Joe Pinchuk's memorial service at the Women's Club. Really a nice, positive event, and I was so pleased to see Captain Turnbull there from the El Segundo Police Department, because Joe had served for 10 or 12 years as a community service officer. Really nice event. I live in the quadrant that's getting slurry coated. My street is tomorrow, so I'll be out of the way. It's nice to see that getting done so quickly, and it's not easy to pull that off. I'd like to encourage everybody to eat whenever possible in those first 3 blocks of Richmond Street to help those businesses as they go through what's going on over there. I finished all my tours of city departments last week with the police department, a fantastic experience combined with my ride-along. Really helped me get back up to speed. And this morning in the engineering department with Stephanie, really good conversation and met a lot of the staff across the way here. So it's been a busy few weeks since we last sat down here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Dugan isn't here this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Boyles.
Yeah, I have no comments. They were addressed by the city manager. Thank you, Greg, for doing that. Appreciate it.
I have a few comments. I want to echo what, Councilmember Persta. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Sorry.
I just want to reiterate what Greg, the city manager, mentioned about the thank you to the city staff for making a wonderful 4th of July celebration for our residents. From all the way down from the public works who allowed people to have block parties and put up their barricades, to the fire, who ensured that the fireworks were safe, as well as the rec parks. They did the most work by hosting a lot of events, and thank you for all your events for the concerts in the park. They're going wonderful. I can hear the music from my house. I had a chance to go down to the desal operation in Carlsbad a couple weeks ago. It was a great educational tour. If you haven't seen it, it's a wonderful facility. It's very clean. There's no smell. It's quite amazing how, and it's very quiet. So I would recommend if anyone wants to learn about desalinization, and you happen to be down in the San Diego area, that's a great facility to go check out. Thank you.
Okay, again, thank you for everybody who made Independence Day possible, our celebration. That is the Rec and Parks and Public Works, the fire department, the police department were there. The sponsors for our fireworks were Scott Nickel and Kuman, so thank you very much for doing that. Concerts in the park, I attended the last one, and there's one on this Sunday. It's Neil Diamond. So I expect that to be a very popular concert. Get there early. As Mr. Mendez said, we all attended strategic planning a couple weeks ago, and we'll have a report on that soon. Tomorrow is the El Segundo Chamber's Salute to the Military. It's being held at the Aerospace Presentation Center at Redondo Beach, Northrop Grumman facility, so we thank them for hosting us. And as Councilmember Brand said, we had a Centennial Celebration Committee meeting last night, and then since we met, I attended Colonel Turner's change of command ceremony at Los Angeles Air Force Base and welcomed the new commander. So with that, we return to public communications. And seeing no public communications, we have no memorials. We are going to return to closed session this evening.